that your right of citizenship is not dependent on race. And the 15th Amendment said that you could not deny a person the right to vote because of the person's race.
By the time you get to the spring of 1867, African Americans have a new sense of government, a new sense of what government means. After all, it was government that would in fact take the steps to incorporate African American men into the body politic.
With the ability to vote and enter politics, many African Americans who had fled the South returned home.
At the end of the war, Smalls came back to Beaufort, where he purchased a house where he'd grown up as a slave, where his mother had worked as a slave. His mother now was presiding over this house as a free person. She'd been presiding over it for a long time for the McKee family, and now she was doing it for her son. Then Smalls went fairly quickly into politics.
The Beaufort Republican Club became the base of Robert Smalls' political career, and Robert Smalls went all over the county, canvassing, as they said, but campaigning. He proved himself to be a very clever orator, great at repartee and dramatic in his oratory, and often aggressive and colorful and all those things. The black population of the Sea Islands responded immediately to Robert Smalls. And so this was the beginning of his political career.
In the spring of 1868, Robert Smalls was elected to the South Carolina State House of Representatives, where he joined the black majority in the legislature. It was the only state in the Union to be dominated politically by African Americans. South Carolina, where the Civil War had begun, would become a major proving ground for Reconstruction. Across the country, African Americans entered political life at every level of society.
If you make this comparison between 1860, when 90% of black people were slaves, and 1868, 1870, when you've got African Americans who are in state legislatures, they are black mayors and police chiefs, there are blacks in the U.S. Senate, in the U.S. House of Representatives. They are literally revolutionizing American politics.
Although their overall numbers were small, their mere presence was too much for the old Southern establishment.
That was very radical. I mean, white folks, they just couldn't imagine that. I mean, social equality, political equality, oh my, it was just beyond their comprehension that such a radical thing could occur so fast.
And so when the social fabric begins to rip from the perspective of white Southerners, what they know to do is to respond with overwhelming violence, and they do. The Ku Klux Klan emerges throughout the South.
They do unspeakable things. They do the things that you would think of terrorists doing. They blow things up, they kill people, they do all kinds of other things that you would normally associate with political terrorism.
These were very dangerous times. These white terrorists, really, because that's what they would properly be called, were committed to stopping at nothing to eliminating the black body politic.
No Republican was immune, black or white. And the thousands of federal troops stationed in the South were not enough to stop the violence. In South Carolina, State Representative Robert Brown Elliott spearheaded hearings to investigate Klan activities. Elliott's success in getting some of the Klan to confess to their tactics convinced him that he could do something about the intimidation. He once said, "We have suffered much and may suffer more. Let us not be driven from our position by any threats." In November 1870, Elliott was elected to the U.S. Congress. He took his crusade against the Klan with him.
Elliott wants to convince the federal government that more work needs to be done to protect the rights of citizens. And he particularly wanted to catch the ear of President Ulysses Grant.
But Grant's only major Reconstruction plan was an attempt to annex the Caribbean island of Santo Domingo in the hopes that African Americans would want to relocate there. Despite Grant's plan, Elliott, along with other Republican leaders, continued lobbying the president. In April of 1871, their efforts paid off. Grant signed the Ku Klux Klan Act, aimed at giving the federal courts the power to jail the Klan's leaders. In October, Grant declared martial law in 9 South Carolina counties due to the condition of lawlessness. It would be the only time the military power of the act would be used. By 1874, when Robert Smalls was elected to Congress, the Klan Act had been effective, but now there was a new problem. Groups called rifle clubs had taken their place. In South Carolina, the Red Shirts Rifle Club became notorious.
The Red Shirts essentially were the Confederate Army recidivists. The command structure of the Red Shirt regiments preserved the command structure of actual Confederate regiments. These were Confederate veterans who were now under, in many cases, the very same officers that they had served under during the American Civil War. And so the organization of the Red Shirts was really a way to bring resistance out into the open.
In 1876, just 8 years after the first interracial elections, violence against Southern Republicans was out of control. Smalls took to the floor of Congress to urge his fellow congressmen to keep the pressure on the South. He told them about a letter he had received, testifying to the level of violence. The letter began,
"These were facts which I vouch for entirely, and are not distorted in any degree. It's a plain, unvarnished narration of painful and horrible truths."
On July 4th, 1876, a local plantation owner drove his buggy down a public road in Hamburg, South Carolina, where a black militia troop was drilling.
The local plantation owner insisted on being allowed to drive right through this muster field. The black militia refused to move. They almost come to blows.
After a few tense moments, the troop leader, Doc Adams, ordered his men to break ranks and allowed the carriage to pass.
All along, whites in that area had been waiting for a kind of a provocation that they could use to rally their forces. And so local Democratic leaders rally white Democrats in that area, and when the local black militia found out what was happening, they held up in a building, and the whites began to lay siege to that building. Ultimately, the black militiamen were forced to surrender.
when they surrender, particular members of Doc Adams' militia are picked out. They call them out one by one and they shoot them in the head. Then they tell the rest to flee. As they begin to flee into the woods, many of them are shot in the back.
That was a turning point, because not only did it scare African Americans, but it showed white Democrats that this was the moment, this was the trajectory you could take if you really wanted to turn the clock back on Reconstruction.